Welcome to Drinks Coach, Vinesack, Drinks Coach UK, or lowercase. You're watching Drinks Coach UK on YouTube. All the information on these wines is going to be in the bio below. If you're watching on telly, just turn your computer on, your phone, your iPad, whatever tablet you've got. Others are available. And it'll give you all the information you need on these wines. A couple of shout-outs today. On this fine Tuesday, seeing as summer hasn't really got going since the beginning of June. It's been a while since we did any red wine, which was pointed out by an avid viewer. Shout out to you, darling Dana Thompson of Edinburgh. I promised I'd give you a name check on the next red wine one. Here it is, babe. And I know how much you like the subject matter, which is PInotage. Okay, so quick shout out both to Dana and to Nick Heath. Nick Heath is an out-of-work rugby commentator who's been doing Nick's Pub Quiz on YouTube every Wednesday night, and up until quite recently, Saturdays too. He's given my wife and I an enormous amount of joy. He became international superstar overnight by starting to comment like a sports commentator on things like dogs running across Tooting Common down the road, people shopping, you name it. And we've bought some of his merch, famous... I'm buying a t-shirt, by the way, Nick, that says Yevgeny Bastard on it. But we've got the Spaniel Speedway, you've got Tooting London up at the top. Just want to say thank you again for how much joy you've given us. You and your husband off camera, bringing you great cocktails. Good choice of cocktails. Most recently, a bourbon peach smash, which has got to be one of the best drinks in the world. I digress. But it has been ages since I did any red wine. So here we've got some red. And the red in question is PInotage. Most people who like wine have heard of PInotage. Most people that can't afford wine very much, but just dabble, like to have a glass of any old red or in a pub, they probably know PInotage quite well, because there's quite a lot of cheap PInotage out there. And up until relatively recently, most of it was a bit shit, to be honest. Old industrially made PInotage, and there are many reasons which I won't go into because it's all far too nerdy, and Emma, my wife, is always complaining that I say things that are far too technical on this show, but I do try and tread the line between knowledge and entertainment. There are a lot of reasons why PInotage is hard to grow, and over the last 10 years, South Africa, and it's their adopted red grape, have managed to learn how to make PInotage, not just in one style, but various styles, exceptionally well. And I've gone from it being my least favourite red grape variety in the world to sitting here quite sad because I should be in South Africa judging the ABSA Top 10 PInotage competition, trying to find the best Top 10 PInotage in the whole of South Africa. I judge at the Veritas Award, a very old wine competition, which I think is going to happen in October now. And if I get the PInotage panel, I'm now thrilled. Whereas before I would be in fear of dread of tasting 185 PInotages. Now they're great. So, what is PInotage then? So, PInotage, a Dr. Paarl, I think it was in the mid-30s, at Stellenbosch University. Shout out to one of the world's great wine universities and one of the most beautiful cities in South Africa. It's behind what they call the Boerewors, which means that if you're in Cape Town and you're Cape Townian, your first language is English. If you're behind the Boerewors, which means behind the curtain of wild boar sausage, your natural language is Afrikaans. So Stellenbosch is an old, many hundreds of years, 350, 400-year-old city, academic city, where Afrikaans is most widely spoken. And they have an incredible winemaking degree there, and people all over the world who have come from there have shone and gone on to greater things. Dr. Paarl in the 30s tried to mix two grape varieties together, which one was available and one was one they wanted to grow but just couldn't do it because it was so hot in South Africa. As it is, it's very warm. Even the cool areas are quite warm. But Pinot Noir, which is one of the great holy grails of wine, you've seen me talk about Pinot Noir. I did one recently on New World Pinot Noir. It's a very, very hard grape to grow. When it's done well, it's transcendental. Many people have had what I call their Pinot Noir epiphany, where they had one wine and went, oh my God, if all Pinot Noir is this good, I want more. fact of the matter is, not all Pinot Noir is that good, and you spend the rest of your life chasing that moment where you had your first great Pinot. Like I said, it's kind of a Damascene moment where you go, oh wow, but then you find out actually the only way to drink good Pinot Noir is to drink lots of it and just chuck away the crap. So Pinot Noir was crossed by Dr. Perrault with a grape variety which was known locally as Hermitage. Hermitage is also a pseudonym in the south of France for Syrah. But in South Africa, Hermitage is not Syrah. It's another Rhone variety called Sanso. And Sanso is very well known, and suddenly, after all these years, after hundreds of years, has suddenly become painfully hip. Not only in making really lovely, natural, maybe racy, crisp, refreshing reds without loads of oak, but also makes a large chunk of the world's best rosé, whether you're in the Lebanon, where there's amazing rosés, or in Provence, and of course South Africa. Cinsault, which was always seen as a workaholic grape, just making jugs of ordinary stuff, has become special. Maybe because the vines are so very old, they make incredible wine anyway. But Cinsault is famous for cropping loads of fruit. So in a country which was basically an agricultural country, it makes sense to have a grape variety which gives you tons and tons of grapes every year. Pinot Noir, on the other hand, is very difficult to grow and doesn't make much wine. So they figured, if you've got this variety Cinsault and you mix it with Pinot Noir, I figured the point was you'd end up with a beautiful wine which cropped a lot. What they ended up with was a grape variety with all of the airs and graces of an East London bouncer, and was even harder to grow than Pinot Noir or Cinsault, and actually had such a late ripening period, it tends to bacterially spoil and make wine smell very funky, even almost like rotting meat, even rubber seats and rubber tyres, all sorts of horrible tastes which are so far removed from how delicious Pinotage is now. It just shows you what a little bit of science can do. So I've picked 3 wines here, and I want to say thank you very much to the guys at Museum Wines for once again providing me with some very nice Pinotage. In fact, there's a real super mega one here, which is about 40 quid, which is called MKM, Klaas Maffer, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago, great winemaker. I'll use that in another show because it's from my otherworldly favourite vintage, 2015. And I think at Christmas I'm going to do a show on brilliant wines from South Africa in 2015 that you can still buy. But I've got 2 other wines here as well, which I think were both given to me very kindly by Waitrose a couple of weeks ago because they didn't have a press tasting. So they've shipped out a few samples to people who wanted them. And I'm very grateful because I've been wanting to do a Pinotage show, but I haven't been able to call in any Pinotage. And I certainly can't afford to buy any. I'm running out of money this late into the lockdown. So Fairview, very famous name, man called Charles Back, produced this fantastic place. It's a great tourism destination with an amazing deli. It's got a really brilliant place to bring your kids at the weekend if you drive out of out of Cape Town and want to spend the day there. Has a cafe, brilliant coffee, brilliant restaurant. They make the most amazing cheeses. I believe they're the largest producer of goat's cheese in South Africa, and it's premium stuff. And they even have these 2 towers where you can see the goats go up a tower, over a bridge, down into another. So they have got like a playground for goats, which are very, very happy. And they made a wine which was kind of Rhone-like in style. So Charles Back famously called it Goats de Rome. And it's one of the great successes of South Africa. I remember buying it as a buyer when I was a buyer at Waitrose many, many years ago, and it was very, very successful. So Anthony de Haga, who's the senior red wine producer there, and a personal friend, I like to count him as one of the great winemakers of South Africa. He made this wine specifically for Waitrose. This is called Fairview Pinotage Barrel Aged. We'll come back to that in a minute. Then we're going to talk about a very famous producer, actually not from Stellenbosch, where the vineyards are, where the very first vineyards of Pinotage were planted, in old school Stellenbosch and the Bottlery Hills and places like that. Môreson is actually a producer in Franschhoek, which I mentioned a few shows back. Tiny little steep hill of a place full of French settlers, but they do have access to some of the very oldest, if not the oldest, known blocks and vineyards of Pinotage. Remember, it was invented in like 1933 as a variety. Then it had to go through lots of tests and checks and balances to make sure that it didn't mess up anything else. So the first vineyards were probably planted in the 50s. So these vineyards planted in the 50s and 60s, vineyards over 50 years old, are considered true treasures of the South African wine industry now. Now people have got a handle on how to make it. The guy that started it, well, Bez Trutter, who created this brand back in the day, and Johan Krieger, who is his winemaker, are the masters of classic age-worthy Pinotage. They made a style that everyone's been trying to copy ever since, a bit like Australians trying to copy Bordeaux in Coonawarra and Margaret River, but can't quite do it. And I think that Bez Trutter and Johan have always understood that you make the wine makes itself. If you have a piece of soil and you plant a variety, if you're lucky that they are a marriage made in heaven, it issues beautiful wine. You can't really force a square plug into a round hole with wine. You just lose all the finesse that really makes a wine truly great. It has to be an effortless thing. So, Fairview in Paarl, warm area, a bit further out of town from Cape Town, good hour and a half's drive. And some very wonderful old bush vine vineyards there. There's a vineyard called the Beacon. I remember in 2013 I drank the Beacon Shiraz, and I think that's to date one of the best Shirazes I've ever drunk in South Africa, certainly in the modern Australian style. There are some wonderful Syrahs from Swartland, which are much more Rhone, much more Cornassy, Porcelainberg, to name one. But here we've got a subject that really, if I'd done this 5 years ago, I would have been pretty derogatory about them, but not today. Been looking forward to this. These wines have just been opened. I know these wines are going to taste 10 times better tonight when I cook my roast chicken. Need a couple of hours open, but these are fresh opened. I'm using all sorts of large glassware. This is water, by the way. These aren't stains. They're just water stains. I don't like to use rinse aid on my glasses. I just like to use hot water. It does affect the aroma slightly. So I'm using a gin glass from Zolcom Gin. And I'm going to pour the first one. This is $9.99. Which is cheap, isn't it? A tenner for a really handmade wine. And this was made to spec for Waitrose, for the Waitrose buyers. I'm afraid I can't remember who's buying South Africa at the moment, but you're doing a very good job. Is it Lucy? Anyway, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant job. She's buying some beautiful wines. So, this wine, the moment I smell it, I realise this isn't your regular Pinotage. And I say that for those people out there that go, I don't care, Joe. Even modern Pinotage was very rich, very dense, very chewy, needs a bit of oak, needs a bit of time. I don't like wines like that. Well, you should think again, because there's been a bifurcation, a fork in the road of how Pinotage is made. And you've got people that go down this route, making wine like this, which can keep effortlessly for 30 to 40 years, and it gets better every single year. We don't make the same. Wines that age beautifully for not a king's ransom. And then there's another style, which is the style of kind of like Beaujolais. I love Beaujolais. We're not talking Beaujolais Nouveau here. We're talking Cru Beaujolais. Like you might have heard of names like Morgon, Fleury, Brouilly, Chirouble, Chénin, all these wonderful names, which come from a region just sort of south, administratively, of Burgundy in France, but kind of almost have more in touch with Northern Rhone. They're stony, granitic, schistous wines. Now, there's a lot of red schist, actually, in the bush vines of Northern Paarl as well, and the smell here is quite identifiably a wine of fresh berries on this firm, minerally soil, and this tension between the sort of like gunflint kind of stones in the nose and this juicy, juicy fruit is wonderful. It's kind of, it makes you all excited. It makes you feel a bit nervous almost to drink it. How have they done this? Well, this wine has been made whole bunch. They've picked the grapes, put them in a vat and fermented them. This is what the French casually call macération pelliculaire. Macération pelliculaire can be translated directly into carbonic maceration. Carbonic maceration is the idea that when you get the grapes and you squish them, juice comes out and you make a wine. That's traditional. If you don't squish the grapes first, each individual little grape becomes its own little pressure cooker. And as the wine ferments inside each single raisin, as it were, the juice inside pushes against the skin until they burst. And you end up with a wine which has beautiful, limpid colour. And Pinotage, if there's one thing it's always had, is gorgeous kind of crimson vermilion colour. But without all the heavy, hard tannins that actually old-fashioned Pinotage is famous for. So you've got this beautiful mouthful, this gobful of red currants, wild strawberries and elderberries. If you're not drooling by now, but it's gushing out of the glass. And then all he's done, let's put it in a cheeky barrel for, I'm guessing, it doesn't taste more than 6 or 7 months, just to round the edges off. And here you are. A wine that's 14% alcohol, but it tastes like strawberry Ribena. Absolutely delicious wine. Put a big smile on my face. That's a tenner. Right, write that down, Emma. It's on the shopping list for next week. Right, so this is the new style of PInotage. So please go back and try them again. Available exclusively in Waitrose. $9.99. Delicious. Right, next one. Brought out the Wedding Crystal. Thank you very much to Mr. Ben Stevenson for buying these for my wedding. These are Zalto glasses, the treasured Zalto glass. Again, they've got covered in water stains, but I don't mind that. Museum Wines tell me this is their best-selling wine. This is $19.99 a bottle, so not cheap, double the price of the last one. But we're already in the realms of talking about serious wine here. 2019, this one. Wonderfully warm, juicy vintage. Little bit droughty to start with, but then all the dams filled up with water. So I think it's going to be a very, very successful both red and white vintage. The whites are delicious too, yeah. 2016, on the other hand, was as arid as moon rock. It was like Mars. There was no water left in the dams. Rivers that were there just weren't rivers. They were just craggy rocks. But PInotage can handle a bit of heat. PInotage was born in South Africa. It's used to it. If you look at the colour, again, it's got a wonderful deep crimson colour. But this wine has been aged and put into French oak. And you can see that there's a slight chamfering, a slight polishing of the colour. It's got more of a patina to it, like a French polished table. A little bit of brick red around the edges. And as I'm waving this around, this room is filling with the smell of good old-fashioned PInotage in a good way. Ugh. What's the smell of? If you've ever bought a liqueur or had a famous drink, French Martini, it's made from a liqueur called Chambord, which comes in this orb of a bottle. And it's made from black raspberries. That's right, not blackberries, black raspberries. They're Tayberries and black raspberries are much more aromatic than brambles. This wine smells of black raspberries, and it's just so full of fruit. There's a hint of really rich, juicy, ripe German cherries, like Kirsch, like Black Forest Gatto cherries as well. Considering this wine is such a big wine, it's 14.5% alcohol, and it's probably got 20 years ahead of it. That is not hard to drink at all. That's a delicious wine. Dana, get this one. This is the one, Dana. Museum Wines, West Country. They'll ship to Edinburgh, I'm sure they will. Oh, wow, the aftertaste is so long. Delicious. I can't imagine what this is going to be like. This is 40 quid. That's double the money. Promise I won't waste it, Mr. Museum Wines. Last one. Well, this is the Kanonkop as an estate. And I don't think anybody will criticise me for saying this. Is the Haut-Brion of South Africa. It's where truly great wine started, almost. They've been making wine for a very long time. I think they started in the 60s. I've been fortunate to drink quite a lot of old Pinotages from Kanonkop, but they have a wine called Paarl, which is a Bordeaux blend, which frankly is consistently the greatest Bordeaux blend in South Africa. When I was at Waitrose buying wine 10 years ago, it was a £14, £15 wine. It's now £40, £50, maybe even more. Tim Atkin, the great writer, liked the wine so much in his South African review last year, he gave it 100 points. 2015 Paarl it's gone through the roof. It's many thousands of rand. But I've tasted it, and Tim's right. It's near perfect. And if you put that up against Lafite, Latour, these £1,000 bottles of wine from Bordeaux, it's still laughably cheap if that's what you're happy to spend on a bottle of wine. Incredible wine. But I think the identity of Kanonkop is in his old, dry-grown PInotage vines. Back in 1983, they were so forward-thinking that they bottled the entire vintage under screw cap. Would you believe that? 1983. I was only 13 then. And I've subsequently drank it, I think, just before England won the Rugby World Cup. Was that 2003? I tasted that wine 20 years old. We undid the screw cap, little rusty screw cap, poured into a glass. Magnificent. They totally saw the screw cap revolution before it actually happened. There are still bottles of that knocking about here and there, and they're still incredibly fresh. But they couldn't sell any of it. That's why it's still around, because they were going, what the hell are you doing, you know, men? What are you doing, man? Anyway, let's go Kanonkop PInotage. Are we up to 20 minutes? Nearly. I think this will be my last 30 seconds. Thank you very much to Waitrose. I looked on the list. Waitrose Cellar is not currently listing this yet. If you do want to buy it after I moan and groan and give out slightly Harry Met Sally kind of noises when I taste this in a minute, then you can buy it at Majestic at the moment, which is about £32 or something. Unless you buy a whole case, then it goes down to £28.99 or something. But I'm guessing when this goes into store, because it's just on the water at the moment, this is going to be around the £30 mark from Waitrose. So. Every time I smell one of Kanonkop's wines, and you smell it, you're immediately aware that you're standing in front of somebody who's got a tailor-made Paul Smith suit on. There's a style and a swagger and an ageless sartorial elegance to this wine. That sounds wanky, doesn't it? But it's like walking into a hotel and going, this isn't nouveau riche, this isn't kitsch, this is class. Walking to the Lucas Carton, walking to the Ritz, you go, yeah. I could wear this for a couple of nights. And I've just put my nose in here. And it smells of cedar. Very expensive French oak. Smells of dry cherry. A wonderful smell of cocoa powder, which is very typical of these old vine, very dry grown Stellenbosch Pinotages. There's a kind of a dry cocoa butter. Wonderful dustiness to them. Oh, God. Did I look like the chimp in the Dairy Milk advert then? Probably. Not chimp, gorilla. Amazing acidity, amazing freshness. 2017 is my tip for one of the great vintages in South Africa. 15 was great, but the refreshment, the acidity in both the reds and whites in 2017, these wines are going to go for decades and decades and decades. And frankly, it's a bit sad that we opened this so young. But then again, they sent it to me for free, so I can drink that with my chicken later, and I'm thrilled. I'm so thrilled. Dana, 30 quid. 19.99, a tenner. So 10, 20, 30. I thought that was perfect. And 40. But I didn't want to do this because it would take the shine away from this, which is already brilliant. You don't just spend 40 quid on wine. Look, you can drink a pint of wine out of the bottom of it. There we go. That's me done for today. Thursday is my 50th show. I've got something special planned.